They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes it comes with a side of poetic justice and a $9.4 million price tag. My name is Liam, and 15 years ago, I helped build something extraordinary from nothing. What I didn't know was that I was also building the very weapon that would one day set me free. It started on a sweltering Monday morning in Austin, Texas, at the glass and steel tower that housed Innovate Dynamics. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt different that day, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. The usual buzz of keyboards and quick meetings seemed muted, and my colleagues who normally greeted me with warm smiles suddenly found their computer screens incredibly fascinating. I should have recognized the signs. After all, I was the one who had designed most of the security protocols that governed this building, including the ones that monitored employee behavior patterns and flagged anomalies. But sometimes, when you're too close to the forest, you miss the trees that are about to fall on you. Trent Donovan was waiting for me in his corner office, perched casually on the edge of his mahogany desk like he owned the world. In many ways, he did own my world, though not for much longer. His smile was the kind that never reached his eyes, the same smile he'd been perfecting since we were both junior executives climbing the corporate ladder together all those years ago. "Liam, we need to talk," he said, not bothering to invite me to sit. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind him framed the Austin skyline, a view I had helped him earn with my code, my innovations, my sleepless nights debugging systems that would eventually make him millions. I remained standing, my laptop bag clutched tightly in my hands. "What's this about, Trent?" "We're restructuring, strategically repositioning for the future." He used the same buzzwords that consultants had been throwing around for months, but there was something sharper in his tone now. Some people just can't keep up with the pace of innovation anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my voice steady. The pace of innovation that I built the foundation for? His laugh was cold, calculated. "Nostalgia doesn't increase stock prices, Liam. This is what we call an adverse action in legal terms. Just terminology. You understand. Security will escort you out." That's when I noticed the two burly security guards standing just outside his glass office, the same guards who had smiled and waved at me every morning for the past decade. Now, they couldn't meet my eyes. The walk to my desk was the longest of my life, 32 floors of open workspace, and every single person knew what was happening. Some looked away in embarrassment, others watched with morbid curiosity, but no one said a word. I was given exactly 10 minutes to pack my personal items into a cardboard box that seemed mockingly small for 15 years of dedication. My hands shook slightly as I gathered the few items that truly mattered to me. A photo of my parents, who had scraped together their savings to put me through MIT. A small, succulent plant that had somehow survived countless late nights in the office. A coffee mug from our first company retreat when we were still a startup with big dreams and bigger hearts. The guards flanked me as we walked toward the elevator. I wasn't just being fired. I was being humiliated, paraded through the office like a criminal. The elevator ride down felt eternal, each floor a reminder of the empire I had helped build and was now being banished from. Standing on the sidewalk outside the building, clutching my pathetic cardboard box, I felt the weight of betrayal settling in my chest like a stone. The Austin heat was oppressive, but it was nothing compared to the burning sensation of injustice coursing through my veins. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Access to email, Slack, the company servers, everything had been cut off within minutes. There was one text message from Jake, a junior developer I had mentored. "What the hell, Liam? They're bastards." Instead of going home to nurse my wounds, I found myself walking toward Joe's Coffee on South Congress. I needed to think, and I needed caffeine. The familiar smell of dark roast and the gentle hum of conversation provided a strange comfort as I processed what had just happened. As I sat there sipping my black coffee, my mind began to shift from victim to strategist. There was something Trent didn't know, something I had buried so deep in the company's foundational code that even I had almost forgotten about it. Almost. Later that evening, I climbed the stairs to my loft apartment overlooking the city. The space was modest but functional, filled with technical books and a powerful personal computer setup that had cost me more than most people's cars. I fired up my encrypted cloud storage and navigated to a folder I hadn't opened in years, Project Phoenix 2011. Inside that folder was a PDF document that would change everything. I had created it during one particularly late night after watching a brilliant colleague get unfairly terminated. I was fueled by righteous anger and Franklin barbecue brisket, coding what I privately called the Phoenix Protocol into the very DNA of our employment contracts. The language was buried deep in Clause 11b, written in legal terminology that most executives would skim past while focusing on flashier terms like acceleration and optimization. It stated that any involuntary termination classified by the employer as an adverse action without just cause would trigger immediate vesting of all unvested equity, with automatic liquidation through our financial partner's gateway, requiring no approval from the company. The beautiful part was that this system was integrated deep into our financial partner's API, completely outside of Innovate Dynamics' direct control. When Trent was just a mid-level director desperate to impress, he had signed off on this without reading the fine print, too focused on the project timeline to understand what he was actually approving. I called my lawyer, Clayton Monroe, a grizzled Texas attorney who spoke slowly but thought lightning fast. Clay had been my father's friend and had helped me navigate several contract negotiations over the years. Jesus Christ on a cracker, Liam, Clay said after reviewing the documents I had sent him. You didn't just write a contract clause, you built a damn nuclear weapon and aimed it right at their treasury. I need you to confirm the trigger conditions, I told him. Here's their termination email. The phrase adverse action is your smoking gun. That pretty boy just handed you the detonator. The next step was the hardest. I logged into the HR portal where the official termination paperwork waited for my acknowledgement. My cursor hovered over the Acknowledge button for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. One click would set everything in motion. I clicked. A faint command line appeared in a terminal window that only I knew how to access. Phoenix, protocol, .exe triggered. The machine had awakened. The first tremor hit the Innovate Dynamics Finance Department at exactly 9:47 a.m. the following morning. A junior analyst's screen suddenly flashed red with an alert about a pending $9.4 million transfer from a legacy payment gateway. The note simply read, Executing Clause 11B. Initially, they thought it was a cyber attack. The IT department was mobilized, frantically trying to trace the source of what they assumed was either Russian or Chinese hackers attempting to drain the company's accounts. They had no idea the call was coming from inside the house, so to speak. Trent was in the middle of a crucial investor meeting, boasting about growth metrics and market penetration, when he was unceremoniously dragged out by panicked executives. His confident demeanor evaporated the moment he saw the number on the screen. "Pull the plug on that server now!" He screamed into his phone at the IT director. "Cut the connection. Do whatever it takes." But it was too late. The protocol had been executed on the partner's cloud platform, completely beyond their reach. Watching the security footage later, I could see Trent's face cycle through confusion, rage, and finally, something resembling terror. In his desperation, he drove straight to my apartment. I heard his fist pounding on my door before I saw him through the peephole, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled with sweat stains. I opened the door and crossed my arms, looking at him with the coldest expression I could muster. He looked pathetic standing there, all his corporate polish stripped away to reveal the frightened child underneath. "Liam, what the hell are you doing? Cancel it now. You'll never work in this industry again." "First of all, Trent, I helped build this industry. Second, this isn't me doing anything. This is a contract that you signed. Now get off my property before I call the police." I closed the door in his face and listened to him pound on it for another minute before finally giving up. Through my window, I watched him stand on the sidewalk for several minutes, looking up at my building like a man who had just realized he was completely outgunned. Thursday arrived with the quarterly board meeting. The boardroom on the top floor of the Innovate Dynamics building was all glass and chrome, designed to intimidate and impress. The company's founder, a tough old Texas investor named Harrison Webb, was present, which meant this wasn't going to be a typical quarterly review. Trent, looking haggard and desperate, was attempting to frame the $9.4 million transfer as a serious cybersecurity incident when the boardroom doors opened. I walked in with Clay at my side, both of us dressed for battle. Clay had invoked an obscure clause in the company bylaws that allowed for 5 minutes of shareholder-relevant presentation from any affected stakeholder. It was a technicality, but it was enough to get us in the room. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I connected my tablet to the large display screen and projected 3 things simultaneously. The original contract with Trent's digital signature prominently displayed, the termination email with adverse actions circled in red, and the $9.4 million bank transfer receipt, completed just hours earlier. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. I let the documents speak for themselves for a full minute before I said a word. "This isn't a system error," I said, my voice carrying across the silent boardroom. "This is a feature. A feature I call the Phoenix Protocol, designed to protect the company's intellectual assets from short-sighted decisions and executive arrogance. A feature that Mr. Trent Donovan personally approved and signed off on." He lit the fuse himself. Harrison Webb, a man who had built his fortune on being able to read people and situations instantly, looked at Trent with undisguised contempt. "Donovan," Webb's voice was gravelly and authoritative, "you're not just incompetent, you're a lying fool. You're fired. Security, escort this man out of my building." The poetic justice was almost too perfect. The same 2 security guards who had marched me out of the building days earlier now flanked a protesting, pleading Trent Donovan as they dragged him from the boardroom. The circle of humiliation was complete. Webb turned to me as the doors closed behind the former VP. "Miss Liam, that was the most elegant piece of corporate chess I've seen in 30 years. Are you free for lunch today? I'd like to discuss funding for your next venture." 3 hours later, I found myself in a high-end steakhouse downtown, sharing a meal with one of Austin's most respected investors. We talked about emerging technologies, market opportunities, and the kind of innovative company that could shake up entire industries. "I've got some seed money sitting around looking for the right project," Webb said, cutting into his ribeye. "What do you say we build something new? Something where you call the shots from day one?" As I looked out the restaurant's windows toward the Innovate Dynamics building in the distance, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete freedom. Not only had I reclaimed what was rightfully mine, but I had earned something far more valuable: respect and a clean slate to build the future I wanted. The Phoenix Protocol had done exactly what I designed it to do. It had risen from the ashes of betrayal and corporate backstabbing to create something new and powerful. Trent Donovan had been erased from the equation, and I was finally free to spread my wings. 6 months later, Phoenix Technologies launched with Harrison Webb as our primary investor and me as CEO. Our first product was a revolutionary employee protection platform that used blockchain technology to create transparent, unbreakable employment contracts. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the Austin tech scene. Trent, meanwhile, had found work at a small marketing firm in Dallas, his reputation in the Austin tech community thoroughly destroyed. Word travels fast in our industry, especially when it involves someone who spectacularly self-destructed in front of a room full of investors and board members. I learned that revenge doesn't have to be about destruction. Sometimes, the best revenge is building something so magnificent that it makes your enemy's pettiness look exactly like what it is: small, sad, and ultimately irrelevant. The girl who had been escorted out of that building with a cardboard box was gone. In her place stood a woman who understood her worth, who had learned to build safeguards into every aspect of her professional life, and who would never again allow someone else's insecurity and greed to define her value. The Phoenix had indeed risen, stronger and wiser than before, and this time, I was the one holding all the cards.